In all the videos I've done on the DB-01, I've never done one specifically about sound design. How much is there to say about A1 oscillator bass synth? Well, quite a lot actually, but I'm going to start with the bleedin' obvious. Later on, we'll move into things that hopefully, maybe, you haven't considered. Let's start with the really bleedin' obvious, which is, if you crank the filter, you're not going to hear interesting stuff that might be going on. On the other hand, you can crank the resonance in just about any and all situations, and you are never going to blow anything up, neither your speakers or your ears. Now that is actually quite rare for a synth, and makes it actually a very safe synth for massive knob twiddlings when playing live. One other thing about playing live is you want to make sure you're in tune, of course, so shift octave up gets you into config, go down to CAL, which is calibrate, hit the left button, it starts to calibrate. Doesn't make a horrible noise, doesn't take too long, and it is worth doing because once I switched on my DB-01, or one of them, and it had gone off by an entire semitone, almost a perfect one semitone, and confused the hell out of me for quite some time until I figured out what was going on. So if I'm doing anything sort of critical, I tend to calibrate. It's easy and quick and gives you a bit of peace of mind. Let's have a very quick look at the waveforms. Nice sawtooth, square wave, and the triangle, which is a lot softer. And if you want to give it a bit of bite, you can turn up the sub oscillator. You can see how the waveform changes, or give it a bit of drive. Let's go back to the filter for a moment. Here is a boring few notes, and if we just turn the filter envelope down, now we're getting a click at the start of those notes. And this will get us a louder or softer click, which in my mind is more interesting than just having it open. Have it open just a little bit, add some resonance. You get that nice little squelchy start. We'll take it all the way down. Get a nice click. Now this is especially true if you're on the bandpass. Here's one that I've mentioned before, but is worth doing again, and it is the cable going from the CV out to the cutoff CV in without the cable in. You have this with the cable in, you get filter tracking. No tracking, filter tracking. A very worthwhile change, I think, and one that I've always got in. And the LFO is one of the main design tools that you have on the DB-01, and I think it should always be doing something. So let's go into the LFO controls. All the way to the left is the shape. I'll just go to the sign, sync off, reset off, phase 0. So this is about as simple as you can get. Now we could just use it as an unsynced filter modulation. Now on some machines, I wasn't going to mention names, I will, the PWM Malevolent, one of the reasons I got rid of it was because the LFO was completely useless in my opinion, because all you could do with it was modulate it in an unsynced way and without synchronization and a few extra niceties like that, especially phase, which we'll look at in a moment. The LFO's sort of heavily discounted in its usefulness, in my opinion. Anyway, if you don't want to have it doing basic filter modulation, then you can just do a little bit of vibrato. It's got to be fairly gentle to give it just the tiniest amount. And don't forget, when you're in keyboard mode, you can turn up the select key, and this number is the amount of Portamento. From just a touch to a lot. But I digress, we're talking about LFOs. Now, while we're still unsynced, actually I'll turn the Portamento off. We can turn the rate right up, and you can get things like that, but perhaps more usable is doing the same thing but to the filter. You can do both at once, but then you lose your certainty of pitch. So that's a lot of fun. And just by varying the LFO level or the LFO rate, get some interesting variations. Let's turn the sub off, go back to triangle. And we could also get a sort of a fake delay effect as well if we put sync on, reset off, put the phase back to 0, put the shape on square. Here we have something very boring, but let's put the gate randomizer on. Which is to say, if you've got one of these bass lines which is just a whole lot of very fast notes, why not put the gate randomizer on it? How about filter modulation. Just by doing that, oh, let's put some accents in. Just by those three things, you can turn something incredibly static into something a bit more interesting. Also, don't forget, in the arpeggiator, there is a gate length parameter. And at 100, it's just like being in keyboard mode. So here's the beauty of phase. The LFO is on shape, saw, sync on, reset off, phase 0. The LFO is also going to the FM, so we're getting that sort of electronic tom sort of a feel. We'll turn the filter effect off for now. We'll turn the amp up. Bring the filter in. The LFO view. Now, as we move the phase up, you hear the rhythmic difference. So it's almost like we're getting different patterns, but all we're doing is changing the phase on the LFO. So let's go up to 16, give that a try. There's a few ways to have fun. Until next time, see ya.